Natasha, were you concerned when Jason told you that he had a heart condition?
Of course. He'd never told me about that before, and I was really worried about it.
What was your response?
Well, I told him to stop taking the drugs and alcohol that he was doing. Twice, like I said.
Okay, so would you have ever given or sold Adderall to Jason Johnson?
No, of course not.
Thank you, Ms. Concha. Your Honor, I have no further questions. May this witness please resume her seat?
Yes, Ms. Goodman, thank you. Do you have any further witnesses?
No more witnesses, Your Honor. At this time, the defense rises.
Are you prepared to make closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor. Before the prosecution begins, can we ask for a time check?
The prosecution has 6 minutes, 5 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
May as well give the other one too.
The defense has, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. The prosecution has 6 minutes, 15 seconds remaining. The defense has 6 minutes, 5 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Before we begin, for scoring purposes, my name is Bobby Patel, P-A-T-E-L. May I proceed?
Yes, thank you.
Your Honor, this is a case about the defendant's reckless disregard for the life of a classmate. Jason Johnson went to Rosewood High School. He was a member of the school's marching band. Unfortunate as it is, Jason Johnson had a drug issue. Instead of receiving help, he was encouraged to abuse drugs by his so-called best friend, the defendant here today, Ray Concha. Your Honor, first, the defendant is charged with possession of narcotics with the intent to sell. For this charge, the prosecution has proved 6 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. For the first 2 elements, we have proved that the defendant possessed Adderall, which can include possession with a valid prescription. Your Honor, the defendant admitted here today that she possessed Adderall, which was originally prescribed for her ADHD. For the third element, the defendant knew that the Adderall that was prescribed was a controlled substance. Your Honor, the defendant also admitted today she read the side effects when she received the first prescription and therefore knew it was a controlled substance. For the fourth element, Your Honor, when the defendant possessed Adderall, she intended to sell it. There is no question that the defendant sold Adderall here today. Officer Doherty, an expert in drug recognition and sales, testified that he found 6 baggies with 5 Adderall pills in each baggie on the morning of Jason's death. The defendant claims that these baggies are not hers, but less than a month earlier, she was seen buying plastic baggies in a grocery store in a county away from hers. Your Honor, the defendant denies that the backpack was hers, but Officer Doherty has said that he almost always saw that backpack with the defendant during school hours. Your Honor, the defendant sold Adderall. She was willing to give it to whoever would buy it, and all she wanted was money. That money was also found in the defendant's car on the day of Jason's death. For the fifth element, we have proved that the Adderall is an amphetamine. Dr. Ricky Sanchez, the chief medical coroner for Rosewood County, testified that Adderall is an amphetamine mixture that can be lethal. For the sixth element, we have shown that when the defendant possessed a usable amount of Adderall. Your Honor, the defendant sat here and testified that she kept her Adderall in generic pill bottles. What was found in her car? Pill bottles. Though in those pill bottles, they found 63 Adderall pills. When you combine the pills in the bags and the pill containers, The total went over 100 Adderall pills. Her prescription was for a mere 3 pills a day. There is no question that the defendant sold Adderall. That selling of Adderall eventually led to the death of Jason Johnson. For the second special charge of second-degree murder, the defendant acted with implied malice, and we have proved 4 elements beyond a reasonable doubt, and therefore she should be found guilty. For the first element, we have proved that the defendant intentionally gave Jason Adderall. Alex Weaver, an eyewitness, testified that he saw the defendant sell drugs. Mr. Weaver also testified that that morning he saw Jason and the
2
defendant
minutes.
together before Jason passed out in the music room. For the second and third elements, Your Honor, we have shown that when the defendant gave Jason Adderall, she knew it was lethal. It could be lethal. The defendant testified to knowing about Jason's heart condition. She also testified to being a peer counselor, but all she decided to do was to tell Jason to stop taking twice, and we can't even confirm that. The truth, actually, the defendant never said anything because she was the one supplying Jason with the Adderall. For the fourth element, we have proved that when the defendant acted with a conscious disregard to Jason's life. After a concert in February, the defendant told Officer Doherty in a laughing mood Jason couldn't keep up with the Adderall. This was a joke to her.
1 minute.
She didn't care who she was hurting. She just wanted to reap the benefits and make money. Your Honor, it would be completely reasonable for you to disregard the complete testimony of defense expert Dr. Burke. Dr. Burke lost all credibility when they suggested that a 17-year-old student who repeatedly abused drugs
30 seconds.
was not abusing amphetamines. Your Honor, the people ask that you find the defendant guilty of both charges, possession with intent and second-degree murder. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. And once again, for scoring purposes, my name is Christina Walter. May I proceed?
Yes.
More than one. More than one person who could have sold Adderall to Jason Johnson. More than one possible cause of death. More than one reasonable interpretation of the evidence. Tonight, the prosecution tried to prove that just one person, Ray Concha, sold Adderall to Jason Johnson, and that Adderall was the cause of Jason's death. The prosecution tried to meet their burden. In the process, the prosecution twisted the little facts that they did have. Mr. Patel just told you that Ray Concha testified tonight that she keeps her prescription in, and I quote, generic pill bottles. But what Ms. Concha actually testified to tonight on the stand is that, and once again I quote, I would never put my Adderall in plastic bags or generic pill bottles. I always keep it in the prescription bottles that it comes in. Because the prosecution has twisted the evidence, the prosecution has not met their burden. And did the prosecution prove that just one person, my client, sold Adderall to Jason Johnson? No. They presented speculation. They presented coincidence. They presented an officer of the law, the lead investigator in this investigation, told you that he misspoke in his direct examination, his cross-examination, and contradicted his own witness statement. Your Honor, we simply have no idea if my client ever sold Adderall to anyone. The state has presented no direct evidence here, so they put Alex Weaver on the stand to tell you a story, to make a connection that simply isn't there. But Your Honor, tonight you heard evidence about Alex Weaver. He and my client fought. He was expelled from his previous school for reasons that the state never investigated. He used and had access to Adderall, and he also had access to my client's unlocked car right before pointing the police directly to Ray. Your Honor, Alex Weaver is the only one in the entire marching band in the entire school that alleges my client dealt drugs. Shouldn't Alex Weaver have been thoroughly investigated? Where is any other member of the marching band, any other student, any other teacher to tell you my client sold Adderall? Did the state never investigate? Or did they investigate and find nothing? The state has the burden of proof today. The state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that one person, my client, sold Adderall to Jason Johnson. The defense doesn't have to prove that Alex Weaver or anyone else was the true source of the drugs. As long as there's doubt, reasonable doubt, that my client was the only one that sold Adderall to Jason Johnson, then the prosecution has not met their burden. One witness with questionable credibility, opportunity, and a motive who only saw a handshake is simply not enough. But Your Honor, the state has a second burden tonight. The state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Adderall was the direct cause of Jason Johnson's death. Well, Your Honor heard from the prosecution's own witness tonight. And Dr. Sanchez himself told you that he doesn't know how much when Jason Johnson consumed Adderall, how much alcohol Jason Johnson consumed, or even when Jason Johnson
2 minutes.
consumed alcohol. Your Honor, neither of the two medical experts could agree on what killed Jason Johnson. And if those two medical experts, doctors who had access to Jason Johnson's specific medical file and autopsy, couldn't agree on what killed him, how is this court supposed to answer that question? Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt my client sold Adderall to Jason Johnson? No. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the items found in the back of my client's unlocked car belonged to my client? No. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Adderall was the direct cause of Jason Johnson's death? No. No. No.
1 minute.
But Your Honor, each of these questions had to be answered with a reasonable yes in order to convict my client. If it's possible, not probable, just possible, that the answer to a single one of those questions is no, then the prosecution has not met their burden. Your Honor, given the lack of evidence tonight, and the little evidence that the prosecution twisted, it is impossible
30 seconds.
to find my client guilty for both second-degree murder and possession with intent to sell. For these reasons, Your Honor, the defense respectfully requests a verdict of not guilty for both charges. Thank you.
Thank you.
You better go. Thank you. Blame, blame, blame. The defense has all the defense has done is blame witnesses. They blamed Officer Doherty for not thoroughly investigating the entire school. Officer Doherty sat on the stand, and I read, quote, "My job was to investigate the whole school." He had a lead, which led him to the marching band. Next, they blamed Ricky Sanchez for not showing that
30
Adderall
seconds.
was the cause of death. But expert Ricky Sanchez testified that Adderall is contraindicated, meaning there should be no traces inside patients with HCM. And they found traces of 40 milligrams, Your Honor. Lastly, there's a admission of guilt. The defendant told the undercover officer, "I have a hookup," and then offered to get him Adderall.
Stop.
Please find the defendant guilty of both charges.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Your Honor, if there is any blame tonight, the prosecution who is blaming my client. Prosecution has blamed my client for this crime. The prosecution said, and I quote, that she has a reckless disregard for life. Your Honor, who else has a reckless disregard? Alex Weaver. Alex Weaver broke into the school cafeteria. Alex Weaver was expelled
30
from the previous
seconds.
school. Alex Weaver took Adderall with Jason Johnson the night before his death. Now, it's not the defense's burden to prove that Alex Weaver committed this crime, to blame Alex Weaver for this crime, but that alone is reasonable doubt. For these reasons, the defense respectfully requests a verdict of not guilty on both charges. Thank you.
Thank you. The court's going to take a 5-minute recess so the scorers can finish their work and bring up their forms. So you can talk among yourselves, but don't leave the courtroom because we'll resume very shortly. Please come to order. The court has considered the evidence and the argument of counsel and finds that the defendant, Ray Concha, is not guilty of second-degree murder. The court further finds that the defendant, Ray Concha, is guilty of possession for sale of controlled substances. Thank you. You did a wonderful job. I would have the scores give their opinions or comments, and then I think they'll be available to you for a brief time to speak to you individually. Whoever wants to go first. Okay,
I'll
Mrs.
go
Okay,
first.
we have
I'm
a
sorry, I was
volunteer.
the one who came in late, so I might as well be the first to say something. So I want to congratulate both of you, both teams. I think you guys really were extremely well prepared tonight. Nobody used notes that I saw. You knew your materials inside and out, where to find them. You were great with your objections. You were very, very clear, I thought, in your questioning, both sides. You were very direct, and it was easy to follow the point that you were trying to make, and that's sometimes a difficult thing to do in court. If you're trying to get to your point, or when you make a strong point, when you're cross-examining, that you stop right there and don't go any further, and I think you did a really good job with that as well. So I want to congratulate all of you. The witnesses, I thought you also knew your material very well. Some of you were really, really good at portraying a personality, and so I commend you on that. I didn't get to see the arguments on the legal issue or the opening statements, but I thought that your closing arguments were clear and concise and followed the evidence. I think when you're arguing the crime that you're trying to prove and the elements, you should probably spell out that the code requires that you prove these 3 elements or 6 elements, and they are, this is the first element, this is how we proved it, here's the second element, here's how we proved it. I think you were just not quite clear on, I wasn't quite clear on exactly what the elements were that you were trying to prove, just the evidence that you presented to prove that. And when you're arguing beyond a reasonable doubt, define what reasonable doubt is. Okay, and there is a jury instruction that specifically defines it, so I think you should just define that. But I think you guys did an excellent job tonight, so congratulations.
I thought this was a really great round. I've been judging this for a long time. It's not easy to get up here and do what you do. It's not easy to do it without notes. Your knowledge and mastery of the facts, it was very well done. I did like that you guys talked about the burden of proof. I can't tell you how many rounds I've sat through before where no one has even mentioned the word burden of proof or beyond a reasonable doubt. So we probably could use a little expanding upon, but the fact that you went into that was good. I liked that your crosses and directs, you didn't waste time. You got to the point so we all knew where you were going. I liked the themes. I liked the more than one on the defense and on the prosecution. They're trying to blame somebody else. I thought that you really tied that all together, and it went throughout the trial, and overall, great job. Congratulations.
I want to thank my daughter for saying all the things I was going to say.
How often does that happen?
In my office, I'm the only male in the office. That includes attorneys, paralegals, secretaries, the kid who puts the files away. So it happens all the time. Aside from general things, let me be a little more specific, okay? Because I found that, and we were just commenting just now, it's very difficult for us as scorers, because I've been a judge and a scorer, it's very difficult to score around like this, because a simple change in a witness can affect the whole round, because these teams are so close. Okay? There are no, you know, sometimes, you all know in the earlier rounds, sometimes there's a rollover. but not here. These are two very well coached, very well practiced teams. So I've got 7, 8 trial lawyers get up and they all speak without notes. They all speak looking at you. They all speak knowing what they're talking about. I'd say easily 90% of the time. And both teams work well as teams. And I look for that because it is a team effort. It's the lawyers, it's not just 2 stars and a bunch of guys. It's the whole team. And I looked for that and I found that was very good. I thought that the people in the pretrial motion were very poised. It's always tough because the difficulty is that the judge will throw you stuff. And sometimes it's a softball to make you look good for us. And sometimes it's a hardball, which you know where the hardballs are, okay? For